Hey everyone, it's Sensitive Deku and I'm finally back with another DR video for you guys. Before I go any further, I feel like I owe you guys an explanation, basically explaining where the hell I've been and why I haven't put out a video for like, I don't know, 2 months. It honestly started as me just taking a short break from creating content because 1, my personal life is more of a priority than YouTube of course, and 2, I don't want this channel to become something that seems like a chore or something that's not fun. And I really don't want to become a slave to some alleged algorithm. A lot of creators always talk about how they feel they get burned out because they're always pumping out content. And personally, I just don't want to get to a point where I feel like I have to force myself to do that. So I basically just took a short break to get my motivation for content creation back. And now that it's back, I'm ready to create some more videos. Oh, and how could I forget the icing on the cake? Halfway through my break, the laptop that I use to edit my videos died on me, y'all. It died on me, girl. It said, nah, girl. It It did not want to turn on, it stopped working, so I had to get a whole new computer. But the good thing about that was this new computer is much more suited for video editing and rendering, so I'm really excited to see how my videos turn out now that I'm using this. Anyways, I hope that more or less explains the break, and I really want to apologize to you all one last time for being MIA for that long. So if any of you remember, back in March, I had you guys vote on my Instagram for the next video you wanted to see, and ranking the Danganronpa Protagonists got the most votes, so that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. I want to take a quick moment to thank you guys so much for all the support on my channel, and for getting us so close to 1K. I honestly didn't expect my channel to grow during my break, but it did, and I'm so grateful to you all for that, so thank you so much. Finally, I really want to make a disclaimer and say right now that I don't dislike any of the characters that appear on this list. As a matter of fact, I like all of the playable characters, obviously some more than others, but none of them are bad to me, so don't think of this as a worst to best list. It's more so a least favorite to most favorite list. And yes, we are including Komaru in this because, spoiler alert, I like her. So with all of that out of the way, let's start this off with number 5, Makoto Naegi. It really does hurt me a little to put Makoto at the bottom of this list because I do like him and enjoy him as a character. He's literally one of the faces of the entire franchise, and he's pretty effective for the type of character that he's meant to be. But even I have to admit, he is a very generic and cookie cutter character in the grand scheme of things. Now, Kodaka himself stated that he wrote all of these protagonists to have relatively toned down personalities in order for the player to better relate with them, and like I said in the Kaede video, this is something that many visual novels do. But in the case of Danganronpa, Makoto is just the most basic example of this. Him mentioning over and over again how normal and average he is throughout the first game doesn't really help, and it certainly doesn't help him stand out from the other protagonists. Even his introduction is the most forgettable one ever. He just prattles on about how ordinary he is and reinforces that there's nothing interesting about him at all. No defining traits, no notable hobbies or interests, nothing. Truthfully, this could be applied to him having low self-esteem, but even that doesn't make him come across as being any more interesting or relatable. Honestly, I really didn't care about Makoto at first because the game was flat out telling me that the main character was not interesting. It felt like Makoto wasn't really a character, but more so just a way to allow us to see the story unravel, and that's not a bad thing, but when you surround him with characters who have talents and backstories and actual personalities, it just makes Makoto fall extremely flat. Now, like I said, most of these were just my first impressions. Obviously, some of this has changed, but just from my first impressions alone, it shouldn't be that surprising why Makoto is at the bottom of this list. He's just the most bare bones protagonist out of the bunch, and I really didn't relate to his character at all. His unrealistic responses to situations that happen to him or around him become a lot more noticeable because he gets so much screen time across the entire series, and yet he hasn't changed much since the first game. I haven't gotten that far in the future arc yet, so I'm talking a bit prematurely, but even there he still seems to be the same character from the first Killing game, and I have yet to see him doubt or question his views, even after all the things he's been through. Honestly, it doesn't seem realistic to me, and it's really not that interesting. See, here's the thing, having a main character be toned down to compensate for the more colorful personalities in the game is something that is done a lot, and it's not something that I'm necessarily against, because like I said before, I don't dislike Makoto. I like the fact that he's a good person, and true, his views haven't changed much, but he still sticks by what he believes in, and I could respect that. But outside of him never turning his back on hope and being able to bring people together, there's not much else I can really say about him. I don't really see much else in his character that would place him above any of the other protagonists, to be completely honest. Remember earlier when I said that Makoto has times where his response to situations is just completely unrealistic, and that his ideals haven't changed much despite what he's been through? One of the examples of this is actually one of the things that irritates me beyond belief with Makoto's character. When Makoto found out Sayaka was planning to basically frame him for Leon's murder, I feel he had a more or less reasonable response. He was hurt by it at first, which he had every right to be because someone he put his trust in betrayed him, right? Okay. So how come in chapter 5 when Kyoko does the same exact thing by literally throwing him under the bus mid-trial to save herself, and honestly y'all, let's be real, it's honestly worse because she knew she was sending Makoto to his damn execution, i.e. killing him, but did it anyway, and all Makoto had to say was, "Oh, I'm sure you had your reasons." Makoto, I don't know if you noticed, but this woman just literally sat here and told you that she knowingly threw you under the bus and abandoned you. She was going to kill you, Makoto. She was going to have you killed. And then have the nerve to sit here and say that her life is worth more than yours. And you mean to tell me you have no reaction to the betrayal you just went through? No reaction. No reaction. Okay. I don't know, I don't dislike Makoto, but like I said, he's honestly just whatever to me at the same time. If this was an overall tier list, he'd definitely be around C tier. But when he's put against the other main characters, the things that I don't like about his character just become more obvious, and he's just not that interesting to me. So I'm sorry, Makoto. Alright, now on to number 4, we have Hajime Hinata. So Hajime was a big step up from Makoto in almost every way. The cast of the second game happens to be my least favorite for reasons I'll go into some other time maybe, but I actually quite like Hajime. He's by no means a favorite character of mine, but I think he's really cool. Firstly, I thought the idea of having the main character technically be the antagonist was pretty cool, even if I thought the reveal itself was kinda predictable. I also like the fact that unlike Makoto, Hajime wasn't just some random kid who happened to get accepted into Hope's Peak. His parents actually paid the ridiculous tuition just to get him into the reserve course, and he fixated on Hope's Peak so much that he literally felt like a waste to society because he didn't have a talent. Just the foundation of Hajime's character alone was miles ahead of Makoto, and it leaves room for his character to develop, which it did. I also think his design was an upgrade from Makoto as well. If you guys watch my previous videos, then you know a character's design means a lot to me personally. And I'ma just keep it real, I don't like Makoto's design in the first game at all. He just looks basic as hell. But Hajime's design actually stands out to me. Like, his design is just way better and he doesn't give off the same beta vibes that Makoto does in his design. And thankfully this parallels with his personality too. What I mean by that is Hajime isn't mean or unfriendly by any means, but he definitely is a lot more blunt and aggressive than Makoto is, and his bluntness and general outspokenness may be misinterpreted as him being rude, but Hajime isn't an asshole, he's just honest. He's honest about what he's feeling and reacts to most situations based on logic, and he's actually quite paranoid of new people and things he doesn't understand, which, to be honest, is a much more realistic mindset to have in a killing game setting. And because Hajime is much more candid, he doesn't allow himself to become a punching bag and doesn't come across as weak like Makoto does. Whereas a lot of the times Makoto would just take the abuse being thrown at him, like the one time Mondo knocked him out and he did nothing about it. Hajime has a much more serious attitude and he wasn't a pushover. A clear example of this is seen in the anime where he doesn't back down from this big bitch, even after he assaulted him and spit on him. As a matter of fact, Hajime actually fought him back and stood his ground, and he refused to listen to Juzo bring him down. He was also one of the only ones to not just sit and accept Hyoko's verbal abuse, which you'll see in their freeze time events, and he was also one of the very few people to actually confront Fuyuhiko and call him out for isolating himself and kinda acting like a little bitch in the beginning. I repeat, in the beginning. And I really appreciated and respected Hajime in moments like this, because traits like these are what I look for in a good main character. And for the record, Hajime being more assertive than Makoto isn't the only reason I like him, because even though he isn't afraid to say what's on his mind, Hajime is friendly and chill and he gets along with pretty much everyone. Looking at this official relationship chart, the other students for the most part have nothing but good things to say about Hajime and actually find him understanding and easy to talk to. So he's just as effective as Makoto at building bonds with people, but he's just a much better character overall. Hajime was cool. Definitely not one of my favorite characters and obviously not my favorite protagonist, but I really like Hajime for what he was and I believe he was a solid main character. Alright, these next 3 characters are some of my faves and I really enjoy them, so let's move right on to number 3, Komaru Naegi. Okay, so I haven't finished Despair Girls yet, so this section is going to be a bit shorter than the others, but I don't care. I freaking love Komaru already and I'm nowhere near finished with the game. As you guys know, or maybe you don't know, I recently started playing Despair Girls for the first time back in like, girl, I don't even know when that was. I think that was like November or something. And I was really nervous seeing that Makoto's sister was the main character. Just for the simple fact that I wasn't trying to spend basically another 30+ hours listening to the main character talk about how average and plain they are, and I also just didn't want her to be too similar to any main character we already had. Thankfully, Komaru so far is way better than her brother, and I even like her more than Hajime. I think the thing that makes me like Komaru so much is that she does start out similar to Makoto with the whole normal thing, but she quickly proves that she's her own person and her character is actually done right. What I mean by that is she's a normal girl who didn't get lucky and get accepted into the best school in the country, so having her say that she's an average plain Jane doesn't sound unrealistic. It actually works better for her because the way she responds to situations in the game is actually believable, most of the time anyway. Cause don't get me wrong, there were a few scenes that made me question what the hell was going through her head. Like when she left the Future Foundation guy in the restaurant to get jumped and didn't help him. Even though she had a whole gun, y'all. But to be fair, she was locked up for a year and she was locked up for a year, separated from her family, and then just thrown into this situation, and she is still a kid. So I can't be that mad at her for running away. And like I said, she actually acts like a normal person, and I feel like many normal people will react this way. I also love her personality, and I think she's really likable. She's friendly and cheerful just like her brother, but she also loses confidence fast and generally relies on Toko for advice and guidance. Despite all of that though, she's still really kind-hearted, as she shows concern for the Warriors of Hope, even after they hunt her down throughout Toa City. And she's sympathetic and thoughtful to the adults that she encounters as well. The best thing about Komaru though is that she is funny as hell, and her relationship with Toku is definitely a highlight of the game. They're freaking hilarious together, and they have me dying multiple times throughout my playthrough, especially when Komaru says shit like this.
This a hospital? Dark and depressing, just like me. Yeah, right. That means you agree, don't you? Oh, just as I thought. Humans cannot be trusted.
Humans? You are having delusions. Then, what should we do?
Oh, don't worry. There's a mystical spell that magically opens the door. Let's chant it together.
What? Seriously?
Komaru! She has earned her spot on this list just for being funny, and I don't regret it. She's just so entertaining, and I genuinely love her, which is crazy because I haven't even finished the game yet. But Komaru is definitely an amazing protagonist to me, and since she technically is the first female protagonist, I really think we need to put more respect on Komaru's name because she was holding it down. Overall, I love Komaru's character, and I can't wait to continue to Spare Girl so I can see what else she brings to the table. Okay, we're down to the final two now, so number 2 is Shuichi Saihara. So when I made my video explaining why I think Kaede would have worked quite well as V3's main protagonist, there were a few people who thought that I disliked Shuichi because of that, and I want to make this very clear right now, no. I love Shuichi. He is the epitome of a perfect Danganronpa male protagonist for me, and I love everything about him. His design is so effing cute, he's cute with the hat on, he's adorable with the hat off, and I hold zero resentment for him taking Kaede's spot. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, at first I was being a salty little bitch, and I took my anger and disappointment out on him. I didn't want to play past chapter 1 because I was so bitter that he took Kaede's place, and I didn't really think I was gonna enjoy the rest of the game. But I was wrong, I was so wrong. Shuichi did an excellent job in Kaede's place, and watching him grow, evolve, and change throughout the story really made me feel connected with him. And to anyone watching who was like me and didn't want to play past chapter 1 because of the twist, I totally understand how you feel, but take it from me, Shuichi is not gonna disappoint you. There are just so many things I enjoyed about Shuichi, where do I even begin? Firstly, his free time events are definitely the most well written and enjoyable ones in the series. I would give this to Kaede, who had really good FTEs as well, but they were only 2 each and never got to go as in-depth with the characters like Shuichi's did. Some highlights of his are his FTEs with Korekio, Miyu, Angie, and Gonta, so if you haven't seen those yet, I definitely think you should because they're pretty amazing. I also think that out of all 3 protagonists, Shuichi easily had the best character development. The Shuichi at the start of V3 and the Shuichi at the end of V3 are very different, and with how dark V3 was, this character growth was written so beautifully that it honestly does feel like Shuichi is a real person. Just like Komaru, Shuichi is gonna get a video dedicated to him where I go more in depth. But I just want you guys to know I love Shuichi so much, and he's one of my favorite parts of not only V3, but this entire series. He's so damn cute and perfect, I just love him. Okay, I doubt anyone is surprised, but we already know who number 1 is, and that's Kaede Akamatsu. You guys knew who was gonna be at the top of this list. Yes, Kaede is my favorite protagonist, and definitely in my top 5 favorite characters list. I love Kaede so much, and that love has not worn off since I first played this game back in 2018. I'm not gonna rehash all the reasons why I love her so much. I did a whole video on her, so you guys can watch that if you want. But Kaede was just so full of life and personality. She was outspoken, she was bubbly and optimistic, she was confident. And unlike all the other protagonists up until this point, she was a natural born leader. For once, we didn't have to sit around and wait for the other characters to make plans, because Kaede did that instead. And seeing her be so proactive and getting a chance to play as her was so refreshing. I kid you guys not, I have replayed chapter 1 of V3 probably over 10 times, just because I love playing as Kaede. Now I know I just said I love Shuichi, and I do, but the transition from chapter 1 to chapter 2 is honestly still kinda hard for me, because Kaede's absence is just so noticeable. Her death was easily the hardest for me to cope with. It actually felt like I lost a real person, and there's been some really sad deaths in this series, but none of them affected me to the extent that Kaede's did. I just couldn't believe that we got such an amazing character and we were robbed of her just like that, and it really stung because this is the character that was promoted to be the protagonist. This is the character that's on the cover. This is the character that they continue to put on covers and promote as the main character of V3. So to buy the game and think you're going to be able to experience this fresh and amazing character, only to have her die so quickly, it honestly still stings. I'm of the opinion that Kaede would have worked just as well as V3's full-time protag, the same way Shuichi did, but at the same time, I kind of feel like her early departure was sort of a blessing in disguise. See, I love Kaede for who she is in the prologue in chapter 1, and I love her because of her sacrifice. It was such a unique spin on her character because no one would have guessed that someone like Kaede would attempt murder. And these twists and breaking of stereotypes are what contribute to making her such an interesting and well-written character. Yes, I do wish we had more time with Kaede, and I definitely agree that the twist, while being very iconic, was just a little cheap. But at the same time, if it wasn't for that twist, chapter 1 probably wouldn't be my favorite chapter. So much happens in that single chapter alone, and it all revolves around Kaede, and the little time that we do have with her feels like so much more just because of the perfect character that she is. Kaede is the best protagonist, and no one will ever change my mind on that. And one last thing, am I the only one who thinks that Kaede has the best voice lines?
I agree with that. I'll cut your words. I hear it. No, that's wrong. I'll turn this lie into the truth.
So that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm really sorry that this took so long. What do you guys think of my list? Do you guys agree with me? Do you disagree? I would love to see your rankings of the main characters, so feel free to leave your list in the comments below and I'll definitely read them and we can exchange opinions. I'm so happy to be back making DR videos, and I have a lot of requests from you guys on future videos that you guys want to see, as well as some videos that I personally have planned. So stay tuned and subscribe if you're not already, because I'm going to have more content out for you guys soon. With that being said, I don't have much else to say, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I'll see you guys next time with a brand new video. So bye!